What's going on, guys? So, filing for obstructive sleep apnea as a secondary claim to mental health. I did a video on this prior, a few months back. I had mentioned that I actually filed for obstructive sleep apnea initially in my first round of claims. It got denied. I didn't have um, a diagnosis, official diagnosis of sleep apnea at that time. Shortly after, though, I did get tested and uh, actually did have obstructive sleep apnea, mild, and so I filed a supplemental after I got denied the first time, and I mentioned that in a previous video. Well, just got my results recently for my rating, and turns out got approved. So I figured I'd do a video on how that happened, and maybe it can work out for you guys. So first off, backstory: I filed it, obstructive sleep apnea, along with some other claims, back in April. Shortly after, found out I got denied, but I was in the process of working with the VA and getting tested for all my problems and things like that. And so, turns out I do have sleep apnea, and so I filed the supplemental claim shortly after, like I mentioned. And I just wasn't sure because if I was going to get approved or not. Vegas odds would say I'll probably get denied, and so I was pretty much counting on getting denied. Just because I've just heard it was really difficult to receive a rating for the obstructive sleep apnea. Especially if you're claiming it as a sole, individual claim, right? Which I did. I didn't claim it secondary to depression, which I do have. And so, I made sure I had all my documentation right on my like the VA medical records. I granted the VA access to review all of that, along with the CMP examiner and all that stuff. And so it turns out that they actually granted it, and I'll kind of read verbatim what they said, and so hopefully it helps you out, right? So just for prior knowledge, I guess, just to let you know. So I do have depression, anxiety, mental disorder, and so just from my time in the military, and so I did have that kind of going for me. I was kind of hoping that they would connect that with my sleep apnea somehow, but I'll go ahead and read this for you, and hopefully it helps you out. So, service connection for obstructive sleep apnea has been established as directly related to military service, accordance to 38 CFR 3.303 and 38 CFR 3.304. So if you guys don't know what the CFR is, basically it's the regulations that are used for the service connection or service connected disabilities, right? So if you don't know whether or not your disabilities are service connected, or maybe you are not familiar with it, I recommend you Google CFR VA disability and take a look at that listing and get some research done. The effective date of this grant is Service connection has been established from the day after you discharge from active duty. When a claim of service connection is received in the 1 year discharge from active duty, the effective date is the day after the discharge. So it wasn't caused from the TARA or the TRA, the toxic exposure risk activity. It shows here you were previously denied for this condition on rating decision dated October 4th. This is pretty much when I received the first rating decision, which was a denial, due to it not being found to be related to service, right? And so in this time frame, I was still seeing the VA. So this is why I recommend, even if you do get denied, or even make sure you're doing it prior, that you're seeing the VA for these issues, right? And so even though I was denied that time because I didn't have sleep apnea technically, right? Records weren't established and stuff like that, I was still seeing the VA to make sure that I was getting all those things checked. And so here it says, on November 9th, you attended another VA examination. Your examiner opined that your condition was at least as likely as not due to your service, stating, difficulty was sleeping during service, and he was diagnosed with severe OSA on August 2023, which was within a year of his release from active duty. And so they changed the opinion, and so they granted me the obstructive sleep apnea, which is, of course, 50%, right? And I do use a CPAP machine, which has helped me tremendously. So, side note, even like regardless of the rating and all that stuff, if you feel you are choking at night and you have anxiety attacks at night, you're waking up in the middle of the night, you're not getting any good sleep, you're exhausted the next day, even though you feel like you gotten hours of sleep, you might have sleep apnea, and you should probably go get that checked out, get tested. They can do like a at-home exam where they send you the equipment, and it's relatively simple. There's instructions. I mean, you just pretty much do an overnight test where you strap up and everything, and then you send that back in, and then they'll give you a reading. Or you can go to the VA facility if they have that, if they hold the testing there, right? I know some people have done either or. I've done the at-home one, and that was what proved my sleep apnea. I should mention also, when I initially claimed sleep apnea for VA disability, the CMP examiners with QTC sent me a test kit, and which I guess, I don't know if it was accurate, their reading, but they denied me based on that. I don't think it was accurate. For some reason, I haven't looked at the results or whatever that they had received after the fact from that. I didn't believe it, and it's kind of if you do the at-home one, I mean, you're the one establishing it, right? You're the one putting it together. So if you mess up even a littlest thing, you can get a misreading and such, right? If it falls off of you in the middle of the night, which a lot of times that happens, you can get a misreading, and so that can give them any reason to deny you. And so I made sure I went ahead and talked to an actual, the sleep clinic at the VA, in which they gave me their own test, and so that proved that I actually did have obstructive sleep apnea. And so I recommend you do that, right? Even if they do deny you, at least you get a second opinion, or you actually get a legitimate opinion, right? And so it does say here that it was approved, which most likely I didn't get much pushback on this time around because it was within a year of my release of active duty. So I do recommend that if you are still within 12 months of separation from active duty, that you do at least initiate a claim for your sleep apnea. Just get that in, because obviously with the timeline, you can at least get some back pay if you do get approved. Also, if you wait too long, it's a little harder to prove that the sleep apnea was definitely caused from, or at least exacerbated from your time in service. Also, I did have, because I mentioned in the previous video how OSA or obstructive sleep apnea is directly connected to, mental disabilities like depression, anxiety, like I do have. PTSD is a big one, right? A lot of veterans suffer from PTSD, and they get issues with obstructive sleep apnea, maybe from weight gain, alcoholism, certain drugs, right, that you're taking for your mental health and such can cause a lot of sleep apnea issues. And so if you do have those issues, that can actually help support your claim. And so I had a lot of those records already ready to go, and so I think that really helped out my claim. And so, yes, I was assigned 50%. I was not assigned the 100% for sleep apnea because I was not, I didn't have any, connection to like carbon dioxide retention or chronic respiratory failure, obviously. But it was a shocker to me. It was a huge, after you guys know, if you've been waiting for a super long time for your claims, I was waiting almost a year at this point. It was a pretty positive shocker for me, but I'm glad that's over with. Keep in mind when you're doing your sleep apnea, I didn't mention this in the previous video, but I'll mention it again. Make sure that if you're claiming sleep apnea, that you have all your records. And what that means is, like I said, make sure you're seeing the VA clinic. You can see a secondary, like a outside doctor, right? Your private physician or private doctor for those for these issues. I think I might not be correct on this one, but I think when you're seeing the VA, there's a little bit of, and if they are, if the VA is pretty much not supporting, but they're if they're treating you for these issues, it's very hard for them to kind of go back and say, oh, he doesn't have it, but clearly the VA doctors or the VA clinic is actually helping you with those issues, like with me is my mental health and stuff, and the sleep. Those are clearly something I'm seeking treatment from and I'm receiving treatment from, and so for them to like deny that as I'm also getting treatment for it and it is service related, and it's service related, it's mentioned in like a lot of my my records and stuff like that, that it's very hard for them to deny that. So I just make sure that you have those records that are kind of unquestionable, I guess, because it really makes it hard for them to deny you in those things. And so you don't want them to find a crack or a loophole as to why they don't give you what you deserve. And so anyways, if you need a second opinion, the VAs, VA doctors are not really treating you for it. Maybe I know that there's so many different clinics, VA clinics rather, that are and they're so different, right? That depending on your doctor and whoever, that you might get different types of treatments and different types of services. That the quality is not always the same. I've come to find out, and sometimes they don't have the best interest in mind, whatever the case may be. But just make sure you're exacerbating all your options. Go to the VA for your treatments. Get all those records in. I always recommend, if you're seeing a VA doctor for whatever reason, if it's sleep apnea, if it's mental health, whatever, after every appointment or so, maybe after every several appointments, make sure you're going into your VA records, your blue button records, and medical records, and just reading through the notes that they had taken down, because sometimes, and I've caught this too, it's that they took down notes and then, they might have understated what I had said or maybe overstated what I had said, and sometimes that can work for or against you. And so you want to make sure that they're accurately taking down the notes. And if they're not, making sure that whenever you're explaining things to them, you're very, very clear with how you're explaining it. So if you have sleep apnea and you're having issues with sleep apnea, you're very clear on, I am choking at night. I am not getting great sleep. I am waking up every 2 to 3 hours or whatever. I'm having anxiety and panic attacks in the middle of the night. You're very clear on those things, and there's no ambiguity, right? And like explaining and the explanation of those things, because it makes it very hard for them to twist what you're saying. And so all the notes will be very much like bullet points of what you're saying, and it's be very black and white and very clear. Keep it simple, keep it very straightforward, and you'll get your rating. Cool. So I hope this helps. Again, I'm building this community of just a little community of veterans that are here to help each other out, and I enjoy reading you guys' comments. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I enjoy hearing your thoughts, your opinions, your critiques, really. Maybe if I'm getting something wrong, you're telling me, and so I appreciate that. If you like it, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later.